Off the Pacific Northwest coast hides a fault far more dangerous than the San Andreas. And most people have never even heard of it. It stays silent, hidden deep underwater, just off the shore. But it can do something the San Andreas never could. Unleash a monster wall of water, a giant tsunami, and a quake nearly 10 times more powerful. This is the Cascadia Subduction Zone. It runs about 700 miles offshore from California into Canada. It last broke in the year 1700, and it has been silent and loading ever since. Scientists call the earthquake that's coming the really big one. This is the story of the really big one. Contoured in the woman's vessel. To understand the danger, you need a different kind of fault. The San Andreas plates simply slide sideways past each other. But Cascadia is a subduction zone. Here, one giant plate is forced underneath another. The ocean plate, Juan de Fuca, dives beneath North America. As it dives, it snags and locks against the continent. It slowly drags the edge of the continent down with it. Pressure builds this way for hundreds of years. The coastline is squeezed and bent like a loaded spring. One day, the locked zone will finally give way. The edge of the continent snaps back up and out. This is a megathrust earthquake. Subduction faults make the biggest quakes on the planet, far beyond anything the San Andreas can ever produce. For a long time, no one knew Cascadia was dangerous. It looked quiet, with no great quakes in written history. Then scientists found the ghost forests, whole groves of dead cedar trees standing along the coast, killed when the land suddenly dropped into the salty sea. Their tree rings dated their death to the winter of 1700. But there were no written records in America back then. The answer came from the other side of the ocean, Japan. In January 1700, a tsunami struck Japan, with no local quake. They called it an orphan tsunami, a wave with no nearby parent quake. Japanese records pinned it to the night of January 26th. The wave had crossed the whole Pacific, all the way from Cascadia. And native oral histories told of that same terrible night. A magnitude 9 quake, the last really big one. So what happens when Cascadia breaks again? First comes the shaking. And it does not stop. Not seconds, but 3 to 5 minutes of violent motion. Across Seattle, Portland, and the entire coast. Buildings, bridges, and highways begin to fail. But the shaking is only the first act. Offshore, the seafloor suddenly heaves upward. The absolute's passion runs not motion. It shoves a mountain of ocean water into motion. A tsunami races toward the coast. Coastal towns may have only 15 to 20 minutes. A wall of water, tens of feet high, slams ashore. It surges inland, sweeping away everything low. One grim official assumption: everything west of Interstate 5 is lost. Estimates warn of around 13,000 lives and 1 million displaced. Roads, ports, and power could be out for months. It could be the worst natural disaster in American history. But how likely is all of this, really? The fault tends to rupture every few hundred years. and it has now been over 300 years since 1700. So it's within its window, special over nightnesses, believed, though not strictly overdue. Scientists estimate roughly a 15% chance of a full magnitude 9 in 50 years, and a higher chance of a smaller, but still enormous, quake. The honest truth is that no one can name the day. It could be today or 100 years from now. What is certain is that it will happen again. The good news is that the Pacific Northwest is preparing. Early warning, tsunami routes, and stronger buildings. Every drill and every sign saves future lives. On the coast, the rule is simple. If the ground shakes hard and long, do not wait. Move to high ground immediately, asked closed. The water comes fast. Inland, drop, cover, and hold on. Knowing the plan ahead of time is what saves lives. Cascadia is a giant that wakes only rarely. But when it does, it reshapes an entire coastline. The next really big one is a matter of when, not if. If you learned something new, subscribe and stay for the next big question.